Chapter 541 to 542 on the mountainous valley. The two figures who had just arrived on the battlefield stood quietly and didn't bother answering Toby's stupid question. The silence of these two people made the atmosphere solemn. Swish. The night breeze blew by, blowing the blades of grass and fluttering the black cloaks of the two people. The rays of moonlight escaped through the gaps in the dark clouds in the sky and sprinkled on the figures of the two people, adding an indescribable breadth to the two of them and giving them a sense of elusive mystery. The solemn and mysterious atmosphere of the two agitated Conan's heart. She took a step back subconsciously and whispered to Nagato, "Please be careful." Nagato, Conan, has always believed that Nagato, who bears the rinnegan dojutsu, is the strongest shinobi in the world. However, in the presence of Yama, the mysterious leader of the Amatsukami organization, she can't help but feel afraid from the bottom of her heart. It is as if Yama is the natural nemesis of Nagato. Listening to Conan's worried tone, Nagato nodded earnestly and clenched his sweaty palms as he fixed his gaze on Yama's figure. In their last fight at Amagato, Nagato was almost killed at the hands of Yama. The desperate situation back then is still deeply ingrained in his mind. The existence of the leader of Amatsukami standing before him really makes Nagato feel frightful and cautious. Even if Nagato is no longer what he used to be, even if his strength has increased by several dimensions since their last fight, the fear etched in his subconscious has still not diminished in the slightest. While Nagato and Conan were extremely nervous and dare not make the slightest move. At this time, Shisui, who was relieved by the arrival of Yama and Homusubi, tacitly retreated behind the figure of Yama. Of course, concerning his current identity as a Konoha shinobi, Shisui still kept a certain distance and did not get too close to Kuroto and Itachi, who were disguised as Yama and Homusubi of the Amatsukami. With this action of Shisui, a silent confrontation between the six people started. Kuroto, who was currently disguised as Yama, was also feeling the tremendous pressure coming from Nagato and the Gado Mazo statue that stood behind Nagato. But he calmed his nerves and carefully examined the battlefield. Similar to Shisui, Yama too was shocked as he observed the state of the battlefield that was covered with trees and nearly 100 severely injured or dead shinobi of the 5 great shinobi. Villagers, including the current Kozukage, Reikage, Mizukage, and Konoha, elder advisor. Then Yama's gaze landed on the figure of Toby, whom he did not expect to meet here on the current battlefield. As far as Yama knows, the white swirled pattern face, Zetsu named Toby, is originally one of the earliest human victims of Otsutsuki Kaguya's infinite Tsukiyomi. He was tethered to the god tree over the course of several years, until transforming into one of the Zetsu beings and was ultimately stored within the Gedo statue, where he remained until the statue was summoned by Madara, and Black Zetsu then removed him from inside the statue and modified with Hashirama's DNA, leading Madara to believe that he is an imperfect clone of Hashirama, similar to White Zetsu. Aside from all the roles that Toby played in Madara and Black Zetsu's plans, one thing to note is that Toby's individual strength is not good enough to be able to cause such a massacre on this battlefield. Although during the 4th Great Shinobi War, Toby displayed the strength of a supercage, he did so by using Yamato Tenzo's prowess to dramatically increase his own, and was able to take on several Cage class as well as dozens of elite Jonin class shinobi. But that's the issue. In the canon, Toby displayed Super Cage's level of battle prowess using Tenzo, but here Yama is quite clear that Toby is not encasing around Tenzo, yet Toby is able to display such a level of battle prowess. How exactly did he do this? Is it possible that Toby is encasing someone else? But if so, then who? This doubt needs to be cleared, or else things would get troublesome in the future. Currently, Yama has no clear idea as to who is encased by Tobi, but it should be someone who can use Mokuton just like Tenzo. Regardless of how Tobi is able to display a Super Cage's level of strength at this point in time, his presence has at least dispelled Yama's doubts about the unknown variable that made him frown earlier. Now with this doubt out of the way, Yama finally fixed his gaze on Nagato. Just a casual look at him made Yama surprised to find that Nagato has completely changed since the last time he saw the other party. The current Nagato no longer has that pitiful, shriveled, and emaciated appearance like that of a dead twig on the verge of death, but has been restored to a healthy appearance of a young man, his body brimming with vitality and his white hair restored to its iconic bright red color of the Uzumaki lineage. Even the several black rods that were embedded in his back, as well as the mechanical walker that he needed to control the Godot statue, are also no longer required. The current him can easily control the Gado Mazo without any such problem. Although Yama had expected such a result, considering the fact that Nagato dared to openly attack Konoha, however, the recovery of Nagato has exceeded Yama's expectations. In fact, not only has Nagato fully recovered, but his strength has also grown to an unfathomable degree, much higher than what Yama had expected. If Yama were to be placed in Nagato's situation, he doesn't really have the confidence to be able to recover so much in such less time. Damn it, at this rate, Nagato might have even surpassed the current me, thought Yama with a nervous expression. In fact, this is still not so much of a surprise. After all, Nagato too is one of the children of the prophecy, and there is no clear knowledge about where exactly his upper limits lie. Even in the canon, similar to Itachi, Nagato was never truly defeated by Naruto, but instead was moved by Naruto's painful past, and especially by Naruto's ideology that was quite similar to that of his late sensei Jiraiya and his friend Yahiko, as a result of which he pinned all his hopes on Naruto and resolutely chose to sacrifice himself. At the moment when Nagato chose to sacrifice himself, he was far from reaching his true limits, because if that were not the case, then it would have been impossible for him to use the ability of the outer path to resurrect thousands of dead Konoha shinobi at once. We must not forget that in the shinobi world, resurrecting the dead in the truest sense is actually a very, very difficult task, except for one of the outer path's abilities of the rinnegan, that is Godot. Rin, Tensai, no Jutsu. Only Tsunaga cures, Elder Chios, Forbidden Jutsu, Kisho Tensei, Kusuga cures, Ryazetsu's, Keki Genkai, that allows her to use the secret jutsu, Rumai Tensai, and Mount Myoboku's special seal tag, instilled with great sage power, refined over the centuries, is capable of resurrecting the dead. If we assume that bringing the dead back to life, that is, the resurrection of the dead, is an equivalent exchange, then whether it is Gadoin Tensei no Jutsu, Kisho Tensei, Hyuga Tensei, or Mount Myoboku's special seal tag instilled with great sage power, each of these jutsus is based on equivalent exchange. Elder Chio of Tsunagaka resurrected Gaara at the cost of her life. Ryazetsu saved Naruto's life at the cost of her own life, and Hagoromo was able to bring his younger brother Hamura back to life at the cost of Mount Myoboku's special seal tag. From these few examples, we can indeed confirm that the resurrection of dead ones is a process of equivalent exchange, which means Nagato had enough value to resurrect thousands of people. Or in better words, even the emaciated and shriveled Nagato had enough chakra and vitality to be able to resurrect thousands of dead Konoha shinobi, which clearly shows just how much of a monster Nagato truly was in the canon. So, It wouldn't be wrong to say that if Naruto hadn't been able to use his talk no Jetsu on Nagato and moved the heart of the other party, and if no other greater power had intervened at that time than the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, Uzumaki Naruto would have been no match for Nagato and would have been easily caught by the Akatsuki organization. This point was later proved by Edo Tensei Nagato, who single-handedly crushed both KCM Naruto and Killer B without any ability to resist or fight back. If it hadn't been for Itachi to be able to break free of Kabuto's control using the pre-transcripted Kotoa Matsuki, and then seal Nagato using the sword of Totsuka, the outcome of the Fourth Great Shinobi World War would have been something else entirely. Therefore, where exactly do Nagato's upper limits lie? Yama cannot guess. Is the effect of Hashirama's cell transplantation on the Uzumaki clansmen so good? This thought suddenly appeared in Yama's mind, but the answer to this question is already known to Yama. It's not just the Uzumaki descent of Nagato that resulted in such tremendous growth. The existence of Madara's rinnegan in Nagato's eye sockets, as well as the presence of Gado Mazo, have helped him in such a terrifying growth. Most importantly, it is the fusion of yin-yang chakra in Nagato's body that has resulted in such monstrous growth. While Yama was thinking about various things, the space next to Nagato distorted spirally, out of which the figure of Tomo-masked D. Emisobito appeared on the battlefield. As for Zetsu, although he did not appear on the battlefield directly, Yama could still see his presence not too far away. Whoosh, 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 at the same time, with the sound of breaking through the wind. Several more figures also appeared on the battlefield. The first person to appear was none other than Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzan, who was wearing his black battlesuit and holding his adamantine staff. From his appearance, although Sandaime Hokage looked a little tired, he didn't seem to have suffered any significant injuries. Of course, Sandaime Hokage was not alone. He was closely followed by Sanin Jiraiya and Sanin Tsunade, and just as 3 Cage-class shinobi from Konoha appeared on the battlefield, the figures of Sandaime Tsuchikage, Onoki, and his son Kitsuchi also flew over. Of course, both Onoki and Kitsuchi did not land on the battlefield directly, but floated in the air at a moderate distance from the members of Akatsuki and Amatsukami, such that they can both intervene in the battlefield and also retreat from the battlefield, depending on how the situation progresses and the flow of battle changes. Of course, neither Nagato nor Yama, who were engaged in a silent confrontation, paid much attention to the arrival of these 5 people and completely ignored them, because both of them knows that their arrival wouldn't really change the situation. With the arrival of Sandaime Hokage and Sandaime Tsuchikage, both Shisui and Itachi, disguised as Homusubi, breathed a sigh of relief. It's not that the two of them expect Sandaime Hokage or Sandaime Tsukikage to be able to help in the battle. They are just relieved that these 2 Kage are still alive. When the two of them saw the tragic situation of the Godaime Kozikage, Yondaime Reikage, and Yondaime Mizukage, as well as what had happened to the Yondaime Kozikage last time at the War of the Best, both of them were really worried about the situation of the Sandaime Hokage and Sandaime Tsuchikage, and thought that perhaps the two of them have been secretly killed by other members of the Akatsuki organization. After all, both of them were missing at the same time. But now that they have personally confirmed that that's not the case, and both Sandaime Hokage and Tsuchikage are safe, both Shisui and Homusubi are really relieved. In fact, Sandaime Hokage did not even participate in the previous battle of Gokage vs Akatsugi, nor did he fight against any other member of the Akatsugi organization. Of course, this does not mean that he had no intention of joining any battle. Truth be told, Sandaime Hokage had every intention of joining the Gokage vs Nagato battle, and was eagerly waiting for the message from Yamanaka Inoichi to arrive, while presiding over all the ongoing battles in the village from the roof of Hokage building. But before he could receive any message from Yamanaka Inoichi about the hidden location of Nagato, Sandaime Hokage, who was standing on the roof of the Hokage building, suddenly discovered the figure of Tendo Pain floating above the sky of Konoha. Initially, he was confused about what Tendo Pain wanted to do, and assumed that perhaps Tendo Pain was observing the situation in the village. But after receiving several messages about the abrupt evacuation of all the Akatsuki members from the village, at the same time, Sandaime Hokage immediately realized the abnormality of the situation. Although he didn't know what exactly Tendo Pain wanted to do, he at least understood that it would not be a good thing. So, immediately, Sandaime Hokage used all the chakra he could muster to cast several Earth-style defensive jutsu in order to protect the key areas of the village, including all the refugee shelters, Hokage Building, Ambu Base, Intelligence Base, Konoha Hospital, Konoha Academy, as well as several other important locations from Tendo Pain's Super Shinra Tensei. With a timely action, Sandaime Hokage did manage to negate the damage at these places to the bare minimum. However, he himself was not lucky enough and directly bore the impact of Tendo Pain's Super Shinra Tensei, as a result of which he, along with the entire Hokage building, was completely crushed and buried deep into the rubble. Because of directly bearing the impact of Tendo Pain's Super Shinra Tensei, and because of heavy chakra consumption at the time of using defensive Earth-style jutsu, coupled with his old age, he lost consciousness and was unable to come out of the rubble. It was only after the battle inside the village had ended and all the foreign parties had retreated that Jiraiya and Tsunade, who were worried about Sandaime, found and rescued him from the pile of rubble. After Sandaime was rescued and regained consciousness, he was told the intelligence that the 4-Kage, as well as Elder Hamura, along with several dozens of shinobi, had already secretly left the village to kill the leader of the Akatsuki organization. As soon as he learned this piece of intelligence, he simply instructed Elder Kaharu to preside over the situation in the village, then immediately rushed towards the outer battlefield while completely ignoring his own chakra exhaustion and injuries. It was only thanks to the treatment given by Tsunade while rushing here that Sandaime Hokage's injuries had recovered and his chakra reserves were also restored. For Sandaime Hokage, the destruction of the village is already an established and irreversible fact. Although he is deeply angered and saddened at what has happened to the village, he knows that he cannot change what has already happened. But even then, if the Akatsuki organization that threatens the peace of the shinobi world can be eliminated once and for all at the cost of one-time destruction of Konoha village, then he is willing to clench his teeth, harden his heart, and bear such a cost. Therefore, regardless of the situation in the village, and without any care for his own injuries, he rushed towards the outer battlefield in order to provide whatever support he can, so that they can completely eliminate the threat of the Akatsuki organization. When he was rushing here, Sandaime Hokage had imagined all sorts of scenarios that he might end up facing, and also thought up their respective countermeasures so as to cope with those scenarios. But never did he expect to face such a scene upon arriving here, and was deeply stunned. Watching dozens of elite jonins lying dead or injured on the messy battlefield, watching Yondaime, Mizukage, Karatachi, Yagura, and Killer Bee, the two perfect Jinchuriki, lying injured and being stripped of their respective bijou, watching the Yondaime Reikage and the Godaime Kozakage lying injured and unconscious in the pool of their own blood, and watching Uzumaki Nagato, the leader of the Akatsuki organization, as well as the 3 other Akatsuki members, including the masked man who claimed to be Uchiha, Madara, Conan, and Toby, standing completely unharmed despite facing all these people. Sandaime Hokage finally realized that he had really underestimated the threat of the Akatsuki organization. As a result, everything he did was completely meaningless. All the planning and strategizing he did to catch the Akatsuki organization in the carefully woven trap in order to completely eliminate it once and for all with a thunderous strike resulted in a complete failure. And after everything that has happened tonight, the one who was truly defeated was not the Akatsuki organization and Nagato, but Konoha village and him. Such a reality really made Sandaime Hokage feel desperate for the first time, and he can't help but clench his fist at his own weakness and inability to protect the village. But at the end of the day, he can only sigh and look at the figure of Yama with the hope that the leader of Amatsukami protects the village. And while Sandaime Hokage Sarutobi Hirusen was helpless, Sandaime Tsuchikage Onoki, who was also floating in the sky, looked at the battlefield. Previously, he too participated in the battle to eliminate Uzumaki Nagato, the leader of Akatsuki. But their company couldn't even get past Toby, who alone crushed them all. It was only thanks to his experience and cautiousness that he soon realized the difference in the strength of the 2 sides, and barely escaped at the last moment under the cover of several Iwagakure shinobi. Had it not been for the fact that the leader of Amatsukami decided to take action in order to stop the Akatsuki organization, and Sandaime Hokage came to the battlefield along with Toad, Sanin, Jiraiya, and Tsunade Hime, he really wouldn't dare to return to the battlefield because he is more than clear that it is suicidal. To be honest, Tsuchikage Onoki's current mook is quite complicated. Although he doesn't know how strong the leader of the Akatsuki organization is, based on the strength that Toby has shown previously, and also based on his own personal experience of the shinobi world, he knows that once he intervenes in the battle, he is likely to die. Moreover, Onoki also has a feeling that if the 5 great shinobi villages do not take advantage of this opportunity brought by the intervention of Amatsu, then perhaps there would no chance to defeat the Akatsuki organization in the future. Although this is his gut feeling, such a reality is still very hard for him to accept, who has been used to controlling the flow of the events of the shinobi world as the leader of one of the 5 great shinobi villages. With such helplessness, Onoki can't help but look at the pair of ripple patterned dojutsu in the eye sockets of Nagato and think, are those the rinnegan eyes? The eyes of Rakudo Sennin? And is the leader of Amatsukami really stronger than the leader of Akatsu? Can Yama really defeat the rinnegan bearer Nagato? With this doubt in his mind, Onoki shifted his haze on the body of Yama. This is the first time he has seen the figure of the mysterious leader of the enigmatic Amatsukami organization that has earned such high prestige in the shinobi world. Onoki doesn't know exactly how strong Yama is, but based on the fact that Yama seems to be able to calmly bear the pressure exuded by Nagato, it's still easy to assume that the strength of Yama is also unfathomable. Although Onoki doesn't want to admit it, even he has realized that the only force capable of fighting against the threat of the Akatsuki organization is the Amatsukami organization, not any of the 5 great shinobi villages. Obviously, Onoki wasn't the only person with such a train of thought. Others too had such a thought in their minds. In fact, at this moment, the gazes of all the people, including all the members of the Akatsuki organization present here, were consciously or subconsciously converged on Yama's figure. This is because no one could guess what exactly is Yama thinking and what kind of move will he make to defeat Nagato.